I was thinking yesterday. So I was like, how would I do my initials for this? And how would I draw them out? So here, my initials are JDC. So I designed it and I wrote J here, D here, and then there's a C there. So that they're my initials, but they're all combined together for one symbol. But remember, this is what I want the end of it to look like, my stamp to look like. So I have to draw it in reverse. If you don't draw it in reverse, then you're going to have a backward stamp. So my recommendation would be to take, and you can do this on notebook paper, you can do this on copy paper. I did it on drawing paper yesterday, and it was too thick, I couldn't see through it. So draw whatever your symbol is going to be. Helpful hints with your symbol. This is about the size of your stamp that you're going to make. And you can make it rectangle, you can make it round. But the end of it's going to be about the size of like a nickel. So your design, you want to be bold so that you can see it easily. But it cannot be too detailed. Because we're working with Model Magic doesn't do details very well. Now, if you're using another material like Sculpey, you can get very detailed easily, but the Model Magic doesn't work exactly like that. So if this is my symbol, make sure that you have space between these. So I have this thick line here for emphasis. I have this bold line here for the letter C for emphasis. And then I have these thin lines. But notice nothing is very, very close together, because if it's too close together, it'll just blob up. And there are easy ways to fix this. But it's just better to be aware of that. Something simple works better. So for this, in order to do this backwards, I'm going to fold my paper. And you can do this on a window if you'd like. And I'm going to trace my design. If you're lucky enough to have a light table at home, you can use a light table. And then when I flip it over here, I see this is actually what I will put on my stamp. Because if I do that there like this, if I carve that in, that will print out this way because it's a mirror image. Does that make sense? Is there anyone that has a question about that? Right here, up to this point. And I can put it, it's probably upside down for you, sorry. I can put it like that. Is there anyone that has a question about that? Please say no or yes in the chat so that I know we're still here.
No.
Thank you, Michael. Good. Thank you, Max. Now, remember, they are in reverse. So a T and a heart are symmetrical. They're the same on both sides, so they look the same on the stamp. But an A and is not symmetrical. So while this is what it's going to stamp, this is what it looks like. Same thing with the R. You can see it's reverse. Right? You can see it's backwards. Whoops, sorry, I have that upside down. There we go. See? For that. The other one, just to show you here, remember how I showed you this is the yin where you carve into it, and that is the yang where it's three-dimensional. You can see whatever is raised will be printed. So for the yang, I dip that in my ink, and I hope I put it right side up. The characters are raised, so that's what's printed. For the yin the character is carved, so that means the character will stay the color of the paper, and then the actual stamp itself is what's the ink color. Everything else is the paper color. So is there a question about that? I want to make sure that's clear. Are we good with that? You can do a thumbs up in the camera if your camera is on, or if you have a question, let me know. Okay. So I wanted to show you this, because if you have no questions for that, then that means you have an idea of what you want your stamp to look like, but you need to plan out the rest of your chop, of your seal, your stamp. They are works of art. So this was given to me, and I haven't used it because it's very special and I've had it for a really long time. But this is a calligraphy set, and it shows you that they've got, I'll have my thing of water. This is my brush stand here so that I don't get ink on my paper or my table. This here and this are actually the ink, because this is my dish. I put water here, I put a little bit of water here, and then I put my ink in it, and that creates my ink. I mix my own ink. And I have this spoon here for your water. But this is what I wanted to show you. This is the seal or the stamp, and it has this decorative dragon on the top, and then it has the character on the bottom. It has the logo, the word, the signature, whatever you're going to put on the character. So when you make yours, you need to design the whole piece. So you'll have this part, which will be your actual stamp part, but then you need to include some type of artistic decoration so that when you're not using it, it looks like a sculpture or looks like a work of art on its own. I talked about yesterday, if I'm making mine, maybe for mine, the actual shape of my stamp could be a paintbrush. Like this could be the handle of the paintbrush, the top could look like bristles, and then I could have my initials on the bottom. And then that way it looks like a work of art, but it's actually a stamp too. It serves two purposes. The other thing to say is I have someone that's doing something that's longer. She's going to do her Chinese name, and it's 3 characters. So instead of putting her stamp on the tip right here, she's going to use the side of her stamp like that so it can be larger. And that is definitely doable. You can do that, okay? Now, can I have a thumbs up, or you understand, or put in chat what do you think you're going to put on the top of your stamp, so that I
understand.
Good, thank you. Okay. Now remember, like, and I'm going to use Max, I don't think you would mind, but I'm going to use you as an example. So let's say that if you wanted to, your stamp itself does not have to be a square or a cylinder. You could make your stamp the shape or the act like a sculpture of your dog, and then the bottom part, like the pads of the paws or whatever, could be the actual stamp part. So keep that in mind when you're designing these. Does anybody have another question before I start with this? Because we have about 10 minutes, so I wanted to go ahead and show. Do not open your packet yet. Here's the thing about Model Magic. When you have your packet and you open it, you can save it a little bit longer by putting it in a Ziploc bag. But once it's opened, it's an air dry clay, so it will dry out in the air. I recommend, once you open it, to start to work from beginning to the end. Don't try to come back to it. It makes it a little more challenging. It's possible, but make sure you keep it airtight. Now I can feel this. It feels like it's starting to dry out. See how that's flaking off like this? That means that this is starting to dry out. Model Magic clay does expire, so I hope you have one that doesn't do this. It's easier to work with. Let me see. Okay, to show you the difference, here's another pack. And I make sure when I open my Model Magic, I put a white piece of paper down or paper towel, but I put something on my work surface first, because Model Magic is clay. It's going to pick up any dirt, color, anything that you have on your surface. Aluminum foil works really well. Or if you open it like this, just at the seam, then you can have like your own little work surface here. Now I want for you to see the difference. This is still usable, but not very well. This is good Model Magic. Do you see the difference between the two? Do you see how when I go to bend, it bends? I can work with it better, whereas this flakes off. So I hope that you don't have one that flakes like this. If you do, we can still use it, but it's not as good as this kind. I have this here that's on my foil, and I can just use, see how it sticks to itself? That's also why I like a clean working surface, because it collects everything. I'm going to take my clay. Now remember, I already know what stamp I'm going to do. I already know what my symbol is going to be. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold, I'm going to separate it in half. The reason I do this, this is going to be for the base of my stamp, for this part here, and this is going to be my details. Everybody has a different color. Some of you have white, some have red, some have yellow, some have blue. It doesn't matter what color you have, because you can color this when it's dry. When this is dry, you can take a Crayola marker, like a washable marker. You can take Sharpies, you can use watercolor, you can use acrylic, and you can paint it. But don't do it until it's dry, which would be overnight. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to make my cylinder. This is going to be the base. Now, if you want it to be a cylinder, like you're going to do a flower, this could be the stem of the flower and you can put your flower on top. If you want it to be a rectangle, more like this, after you get your cylinder made, you tap it, tap it, tap it, and see how it's starting to square those edges out, so you can get more of a square shaped base. Right? Then I have my base. I'm ready to go. See how fast and simple that was? I will tell you, these wrinkles and things that you see in here, those do not come smooth. In Model Magic, you can't smooth it out like the other clay that we're using. Now, if you're going to do this in Play-Doh, it's the exact same thing. If you're going to do this in Sculpey, it's the same thing, except for yours can be smooth, right? And you will have to bake yours in the Sculpey. This is air dry. So I have this here, and then I'm going to design the base. So I'm going to just do the paintbrush here. So I'm going to make, and this is going to be really large, but I'm going to make the tip of my paintbrush here. And the cool thing about this is, because it's Model Magic, you don't need to score and slip it. It sticks to itself. So look at that. It looks like a candle, right? Then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to flatten it, make a little slab. I might even fold it over. Remember, this does not get smooth. So the more you work it and ball it up and work it and ball it up, one, it does dry it out, but those marks and wrinkles that are on there, they will never go away. So now this is that handle, you know, the little base when you have a paintbrush here. You can see this is that little piece right there. I'm going to go and pinch this together. See how that's smoothed it out, but that seam is still there? That seam is never going to go away. I'm going to smooth that up here. And then, because this comes down I'm just going to kind of smooth that in. So you can see that it doesn't take long to create your chop. You're able to do it relatively well. If, you know, I'm using the handle of a paintbrush right now to smooth this out. The best tool you have is your fingers. I don't have to use this if I don't want to. I could just use my finger, right? And now I will add like these little details if I can later, but now I'm going to do my stamp so that you can see it. So I've made all my details, and now I'll put my stamp in. This one I think you can see better, right? Remember, this is what I want it to look like, but this is what I'm going to make. Now a Q-tip works really well, not a Q-tip, a toothpick works really well for this. Also the tip of a pencil. So I'm going to use like a sharpened pencil or a mechanical pencil here. And this is why I say it's important, because you can't draw it. If you go to draw it like that, it tears and rips. You have to kind of do like a series of dots, like in a row like this. I hope you can see this. This is my J. And you can see it has to be a relatively simple design, like this, or it's just gonna blob out. Okay, so there is my design. Now I saved just a little bit of extra, and the reason I save that is, what if I messed up? I can take this extra and just put it on top and redraw it, and then I don't have to worry about, oh, well, it's sticking again. Oh no, I've messed up again. Then you let it dry, and you can stamp it with a marker. You can color the tip with a Crayola marker. You can color the tip with watercolor, and it will work. That is the yin style. For the yang style, I would take and pretend that this base is flat. I roll out a coil. Remember, coils are like those ropes, those little snakes and worms that y'all make. I take that and then I put on my piece. Make sure this is flat. And I can come here and put that top part of my J there. Here. And then I can put this part here. Remember, you still have to do it upside down. Here. And that's going to be kind of what I get. I want this top piece up here to be a little thicker, so I'm going to add more in. Now you of course would spend more time, but that kind of gives you an idea of what it will look like. And then I let that dry overnight, and I can stamp with it the next day. All right?